Hello, my name is Sean Sperry and I am with the IBM Systems Group. And in this video we're going to discuss the new features and enhancements that we are releasing in Spectrum Protect version 8.1. And specifically we are going to discuss Spectrum Protect 8.1 for virtual environments, Spectrum Protect 8.1 Snapshot, and Spectrum Protect 8.1 for ERP. Now this release will be generally available on 12/9 of 2016, so that's December 9th. And over here on the left hand side you see the features that my colleague Tricia Zhang is going to be discussing. So these are features of the base server, the operations center, the client, and HSM for Spectrum Protect. What I'm going to be discussing in my presentation are just the virtual environments enhancements, so Spectrum Protect for VMware, Spectrum Protect for ERP and Snapshot, and Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Windows. So those items that are on the right-hand side in this slide. So I'd like to start out by talking about data protection for virtual environments and data protection for VMware, specifically 8.1 and tagging. Over the last several quarterly releases of Spectrum Protect for virtual environments, we've included the ability to control certain aspects of backup by the VMware administrator through the use of tagging on the vSphere web client. Now what we've done in version 8.1 is continue that evolution of Spectrum Protect for virtual environments by giving the VMware administrator more control over backup through the use of tags. Some of the things we've added in version 8.1 include the ability to do inheritance. So you used to have to tag individual machines with the functions that you want. Now you can put a tag on a container and have it flow down to objects that are contained in that container. We've added the ability to control scheduling and load balancing through tagging and using the vSphere web client. And then finally we've added the ability to control some of the aspects of application protection for SQL Server and Exchange using tagging in version 8.1. So in this table you see a list of the tag categories and values that are available in 8.1. Now I'm not going to go over every tag in this list, but I just want to point out some of the highlights to you. First of all, as you can see, the tags that are in this pink here were the ones that were included in version 7.x. So as you can see, there are only 2 of them. And a large number of tags were added at version 8.x, and those are the ones in blue. Now these tag names are case sensitive, and this is the name of the tag as it is placed on the VMware object. And this is a description of what the tag does in this tag description column. Now in this column what we have is the applicable inventory object. So basically what this is telling you is, from an inheritance perspective, this is how you can set up the tag and have its value flow down through the VMware hierarchy down to the virtual machine level. And as you can see, most of the tags that are supported in version 8.1 you can apply at the higher level, for instance the resource pool, host cluster, or data center level, and have them flow down to the specific virtual machine. Really there are only 2 that are applicable at the virtual machine only, and that is the application protection tag and the enable keep SQL log tag. Now in terms of setting things up, I want to spend a little time on the recommended initial configuration procedure. And the reason I want to do this is as follows. First, understand that the goal of this is to provide the VMware administrator control over the Spectrum Protect backups. But for the initial setup of the configuration, there is going to be some interaction required between the Spectrum Protect administrators and the VMware administrators to make sure that things are set up properly and configured properly. And some of the setup is going to be done on the Spectrum Protect server side and on the Spectrum Protect data mover side. And some setup is going to be done in the VMware web client. So I think it's important for you to read through this list as you're doing the initial setup and understand what needs to happen. First of all, as part of the initial setup of Spectrum Protect, you're going to define your VM backup schedules on the Spectrum Protect server and set up your data movers. As step 2, you're going to go ahead and create the IBM Spectrum Protect tabs in the VMware inventory using one of the following, either the vSphere Web Client GUI or using the PowerShell scripts that the VMware administrator can write. Now, quite frankly, with inheritance, it's pretty easy and pretty powerful to do this at version 8.1 with the vSphere Web Client GUI, so that would be my recommendation as to how to do step 2. Step 3, you're going to install and configure the data movers, including setting up a default data mover and telling the data movers that you're going to use tagging in VMware to control the backups. Step 4, you're going to associate the data movers with schedule, and we'll take a look at some of those dialogues in the web client GUI, in the VMware web client GUI. You can also do it from the protect define association command, but it's pretty easy to do from the vSphere web client GUI. So again, that's where I would do it. And then lastly, what you're going to do is do your container object setup and set the tags that are going to control the configuration, control the schedules, control the include, excludes, etc. Now, I did want to point out that historically, a lot of this work has been done at the data mover level in the options file for the data mover. And a lot of this work was done with the domain.vm full options. And you can still do it there if you want to. But at version 8.1, what we've done is first introduce a lot more granularity at this domain.vm full level, including this VM resource pool, VM host folder, VM data center, and schedule-tag options. But secondly, what we've done is allow you to, with the Operations Center, define schedules that include this domain.vm full setting in the schedule. So really, if you want to go wholly with tagging, my recommendation would be to define the schedules in the 8.1 Operations Center using the and have it automatically add this domain.vm full option and control your scheduling and your includes and excludes that way. But this option is still available if you want to use it. Now, from a data mover configuration perspective, and there's a couple things that we recommend you do if you're going to use tagging. First thing is to add this VM tag data mover option to the data mover configuration file. And basically this is just to differentiate the new way of doing things using tagging from the old way of doing things using the options file. The second thing we recommend is that you define a default data mover. And this default data mover is used to back up machines that are potentially newly added and do not have any associated tags that associate them with schedules. So it's a pretty easy way to make sure that if you do add new virtual machines and they don't for some reason get put in a container that inherits the proper scheduling settings, that they do get picked up for the scheduled backup operations and they're not shown at risk in the Spectrum Protect monitor table. The next step in data mover configuration is to go in and assign one or more data movers to each schedule. And the reason you're going to want to do this is because potentially what you're going to want to do if you have multiple data movers is do load balancing across those data movers for scheduling purposes. Now, the easiest way to do this is from the VMware vSphere web client and in this global schedule panel. When you first install IBM Spectrum Protect and you go to this global screen and go to the schedule panel, basically what you're going to see is a list of schedules that you have defined for a particular vCenter. And for each one of those schedules, this panel is going to allow you to take that schedule and associate it with one or more data movers for doing load balancing. The way you do that is you select the schedule and you do an edit. And of course, another way to do that is to right-click on the particular schedule and do an edit in the vSphere web client. And when you do, you're going to get a dialog box that looks like this. Now, with this dialog box, this is where you can go in and either, as a first step, assign multiple data movers to a schedule, or on an ongoing basis, reassign schedules to different data movers. And of course, the way you do that is just by selecting the data movers that are going to go with the schedule. Now, a schedule does need to have at least one data mover associated with it. And if you select more than one data mover, then what's going to happen is, as the virtual machines that are associated with that data mover or associated with that schedule are backed up, the schedule is going to do load balancing against those virtual machines. What it does is basically split the virtual machines up amongst the load balancers and then go down the list of virtual machines sorted by the storage that is used by the virtual machine. And as it goes down the list, it backs up the largest one first, and then the next largest one, etc. Now, there's also a checkbox on this screen called Full Rebalance of Data Movers, which you can select or not select. If it's unchecked, then we're only going to balance VMs without a valid data mover tag, or in other words, the new virtual machines that are potentially added into an environment. Otherwise, if you do check this full rebalance of data movers dialog box, the load balancer is going to override any existing data mover tags set in the VMs. In other words, reassign all of the virtual machines that are associated with that schedule. The next thing we're going to talk about is assigning tags to containers and to virtual machines. So where we are in the process now is we've gone in and configured our data movers, we defined our basic schedules, and we've gone in and configured the load balancing for those schedules so that our virtual machines can get backed up on a nightly basis. Now we need to go in and for all of the virtual machines that are in the data center or the virtual machines that are going to be added in the future, assign the appropriate tags so that they get backed up or included, excluded, or scheduled and are associated with the right retention information. Now, in order to do this, we're going to use inheritance of the tags in VMware. Now, from an inheritance perspective, tagging works just like you might expect. There's really no surprise here. Basically, the highest center is the highest level object is going to be the data center object, and as you assign tags to these higher level objects, they're going to automatically flow down to the lower level objects. So basically what you're going to do is assign your broadest applying tags at the level that is the highest in the hierarchy and have them automatically flow down to the virtual machine level and only override the tags at the virtual machine level if you have an exception. Now this slide kind of talks about the policy and best practices, shall we say, of inheritance. And to kind of summarize it, I'd really summarize it as is the recommendation basically not to make a mess. Really what you want to do is kind of do some planning with regard to your tagging and inheritance so that you don't create so many tags that you're constantly overriding things and constantly making exceptions. You're going to create a set of tags that applies to the broadest spectrum of machines, put it at the highest level that you possibly can, and just automatically let the child containers inherit those settings. Now, if you have a child virtual machine or a child container that you need to make an exception on, that's fine, but you want those overrides to be the exception and not the rules. Now, as far as working in the vSphere web client, it's really pretty straightforward. Here you see over here on the left hand side the list of objects, and here we are looking at the data center. And when you look at this IBM Spectrum Protect panel, you see the tags that are applied to this particular object. And as you can see from this particular panel, the tags will tell you whether a particular function is the system default or whether it's controlled via tag that's added to the object. In order to edit the tags, you basically just go in and click edit and you're able to edit the tags. This example of the vSphere web client is just showing in a example in a visual slide how to use inheritance to leverage configuring things at the higher level and having them flow down. So here you see a data center, and what we've done here is we've gone in and set our global policy that we want to use for backups at the data center level. In our case, our data center is named Cluster 1. And then as you can see down here, we have a resource pool that is within this Cluster 1 data center. And as you can see, the tags are inherited from the higher level object in the hierarchy. This panel shows an example of editing a particular object to override the inherited tags. So here we've clicked on, we've gone to this resource pool, we've clicked on edit, and we can either add additional tags or click this clear local settings to remove the additional tags and set everything back to the inherited global settings. Now, as I mentioned a little earlier, of course, local settings always override the inherited global ones. So what you want to do here is only make these overrides as exceptions, not make them as the rule, so you don't have so many tags floating around that that you make a mess. Okay, I'd like to continue our 8.1 Spectrum Protect for virtual environments enhancements with several enhancements we've done to the vSphere web client at version 8.1. If you've been following our enhancements and our quarterly versions, you know we continue to build out the vSphere web client Spectrum Protect integration to give the VMware administrator additional options and additional control over the Spectrum Protect backup. This first enhancement allows the VMware administrator to go to the Data Center, Monitor tab, and IBM Spectrum Protect and get further information about all of the recent backups for all virtual machines that are in the data center. So as you can see here, we have a list of virtual machines that are in the data center. And if you click on one, you'll be able to see the backup history for that virtual machine, whether it succeeded or failed. Now, additionally, on this particular panel, you'll also be able to set the default policy for the data center, which controls how the risk status displays in both the vSphere web client and the Spectrum Protect Operations Center. So as you can see here, we have some machines that are determined to be at risk based on our settings of how long you can go without a backup. Some machines that have no backup, some machines that are excluded, etc. Now, just a warning here. When you look at this backup history on this panel, this is looking at the summary extended table and other areas to get this information. So even though a machine may not have any information here, it may still be backed up on the Spectrum Protect server based on the policy that you use to store the virtual machine. So this is just the backup history that pulls from the summary extended table. The next enhancement to the vSphere web client is the enhancement of the restore to use the complete wizard. This wizard used to be available in the Spectrum Protect for virtual environments, data protection for VMware web GUI, but not in the vSphere web client. And what we've done is enhance the vSphere web client so you have all of the control in the web client that you used to have in the Spectrum Protect for virtual environments web GUI. So for instance, when you go to do a restore, you can see information on all of the restores that are available for a particular virtual machine. You can create a new virtual machine or replace the virtual machine that is already in the vCenter environment. You can pick particular disks to be restored, and you can also select the data mover that you want to use for the restore operation. So it just gives you more control and more options when you're doing a restore of a virtual machine. Now moving on to some more technical details about backups. Way back in version 7.1.4, that was probably about a year ago at this point, or at least 9 months ago, we added support for larger virtual machines containing disks up to 8 terabytes in size. And by default, that option was turned off, and you could turn it on by specifying this VM max virtual disks size in the data mover options file. Now, from a performance perspective, although we allowed those larger VMDKs, we did not make any performance enhancements to the product at that time at version 7.1.4. And beginning at version 8.1, what we've done is started on a path to make changes in the way that virtual machines are stored on the Spectrum Protect server, these large virtual machines, to allow for improved performance on both backup and restore. And basically what this really boils down to is the increased use of parallelism or number of sessions when you're doing the backup and restore for these large monster virtual machines. Now there are several use cases for this or ways in which this can be used and sizes of virtual machines. And as usual, what we're doing, given our new agile delivery structure, is we're phasing this in as we go forward. So what you're going to see is way back in version 6.4, that was quite a while ago, we supported backing up multiple VMs in parallel. And at version 8.1, what we've done is we've added the ability to back up a single VM with multiple VMDKs in parallel, and we've also added the ability to back up a single VM with a huge VMDK in parallel with multiple sessions. Now, from a restore perspective, at version 8.1, what you'll be able to do is get multiple sessions for a restore of a single virtual machine with a huge monster VMDK at version 8.1. And in the future, we're going to continue to enhance this parallelism to allow you to restore multiple VMDKs in parallel and also restore multiple VMs in parallel. But again, at version 8.1, the change is the ability to back up single VMs with multiple VMDKs in parallel and to back up and restore these large VMDKs in parallel using multiple sessions. Now, the implementation of this is based on options in the data mover. And as you can see from this chart, we already had this VM max parallel, VM limit per host, and VM limit per data store that controlled the maximum number of VMs backed up in parallel and the maximum number of simultaneous VMs and disks backed up per host and per data store. But what we've done at version 8.1 is add these two new options, VM max backup sessions and VM max restore sessions. And what these do is control the total number of backup sessions across all VMs. And for VM restore sessions, the total number of restore sessions across all VMs. Okay, so I'd like to give you some further information on how these new parameters work. And so starting with VM max backup sessions. First of all, you should understand that this is truly a maximum in the sense that the Spectrum Protect server and the data protection for VE client is deciding how many backup sessions each machine can have. And it's based on a number of different factors. It includes the number of virtual disks that are on the virtual machine, the size of the virtual machine, the remaining data to back up on the virtual machines, and also the options you may have set from previous versions, such as VM limit per host and VM limit per data store. Now, we don't want to change the behavior of previous versions, so VM Max Parallel is still going to define the maximum number of virtual machines that you can back up in parallel. And if you don't set VM Max backup sessions, then the default is going to be VM Max Parallel. So essentially you will get one session per virtual machine. Now, for VM Max Restore sessions, what that parameter controls is parallel restore of the megablocks, or essentially .dat files, in multiple threads with dedicated API sessions. So it is controlling the restore of large VM DKs with machines that have those. By default, the value is going to be set to 1, and the maximum number that you can set it to in 8.1 is 10. Now, as I indicated on the previous slide, remember that for version 8.1, virtual machines and virtual disks continue to be restored serially. That is one at a time. And the enhancement to do those in parallel is planned for a future release. Okay, now moving on to some deprecated or features that have changed with version 8.1. First, you used to be able to, in previous versions, do a full backup of virtual machines using the Spectrum Protect base client. And at version 8.1, that feature will not be shipped with the base client. Basically, you need to have a data protection for VE license. If you look at earlier versions of Spectrum Protect for virtual environments, we used to support a methodology called full plus incremental. That was one of the first things we delivered with Spectrum Protect for VE. And quickly thereafter, we went to incremental forever methodology. At version 8.1, since there weren't very many people still using the full plus incremental mode, we are going to stop supporting that, and we'll only support the IFF, incremental forever full, and incremental forever incremental models. The vSphere client plugin is not supported, and again, this is just going along with what VMware is doing. Everything for VMware is moving to the web client, and of course so are we. And then finally, we are no longer supporting vCloud Director. Okay, so that's going to cover the changes for Spectrum Protect for Virtual Environments 8.1. Next, what we're going to do is cover the changes for Spectrum Protect Snapshot version 8.1. And as you recall, there are various different flavors of Spectrum Protect Snapshot. And we're going to start with the Windows flavor of it. Now, prior to version 8.1, we used to use the VSS providers and only allow VSS snapshots to be mounted as read-only for Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Windows. So what this did was prevented any operation which required writing to a mounted snapshot. Now what we've done at version 8.1 is allow VSS Snapshot for Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Windows to have 3 different mount options. The first one is this read-only, which was supported in prior versions, so you can mount a snapshot as read-only. This next one is this so-called read-write persistent copy. And what this allows you to do is to mount a copy type VSS snapshot as read-write. But note, however, that any changes that you make to the copy are now going to be persistent. So if you're using that copy, that snapshot, as a backup, your backup will then be modified. Now, there is a special case for SVC and SVC-based appliances. Those particular devices have this snap of a snap feature. And what this allows us to do is, in Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Windows, mount a snapshot as read-write non-persistent. So that is this last option down here at the bottom. And basically what this allows us to do is mount the VSS backup type as read-write, but not persist the changes that are made to the backup or to the snapshot. So essentially the backup, if you're going to use it for that, is still good and can still be used as a backup. This is supported in SVC VSS Hardware Provider version 4.12 or later at this point. Now, there are a couple real-world implications for this in Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Windows. And they are, first, with SQL Server. You can take a SQL Server database and use it to make a clone on another SQL Server in the environment for potentially any kind of DevOps need, testing, etc. Or maybe you want to make a clone of a SQL Server database and use it for reporting. And you can do both of those options since the snapshot is now writable. Now, the other real-world benefit of having readable read-write snapshots is in Exchange. In prior versions of Exchange, since we were mounting the snapshot as read-only, what we used to do is make a copy of the database into the Exchange RDB. And of course, that took time. So with version 8.1, now what we can do is when we were doing item level recovery of Exchange mail items, we don't need to copy the Exchange database file into the RDB. We can just leave it on the snapshot and do our recovery of the database and do our IMR from there. So the net of this is Exchange item level restores are going to be much faster in version 8.1 than they were in prior versions. Now, note here, since for non-SVC VSS providers, when you mount a copy snapshot as read-write, the backup data on that snapshot or the data on that snapshot can be modified. So what we're going to do if that happens and if you use that feature is to mark the data as modified so that you cannot use it for a full database restore. And here you see an example of an Exchange snapshot that has been marked as mailbox restore only. So essentially, since we modified that snapshot, it can't be used for a full Exchange database restore now. Okay, so moving on to Spectrum Protect Snapshot for UNIX. The first thing we're going to talk about is the DB2 support in Spectrum Protect Snapshot for UNIX. Prior to version 8.1, we did allow parallel processing for multiple partitions in a SAP environment that was using DB2 as a backend. And with version 8.1, what we're now going to do is allow parallel processing in non-SAP environments for Spectrum Protect Snapshot for UNIX DB2. So the things that you can do include parallel backup for multiple partitions and the cloning of a database with multiple partitions in parallel. Now this is controlled with the DB2 set parameter. DB2 underscore parallel underscore ACS. And as you can see, it's supported at version 10.5 FixPack 8 or later. Earlier versions of Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix did not support the non-default DB2 or using non-default DB2 storage groups. And now in version 8.1, we do support non-default DB2 storage groups for DB2 cloning. Another feature that was added, or an additional parameter that was added, is there are some cases in which when you clone a database, you want to change the initial shared memory size on the clone because maybe you have a smaller system that you're moving the database to or that you're cloning it to. And we've added this clone underscore database underscore memory parameter in the snapshot profile that lets you change that amount of shared memory. Now, in version 8.1, the DB2 supported versions are going to be 10.1, 10.5, and 11.1. And just to note that at version 8.1, we no longer support DB2 pure scale. So moving along to some of the other databases and applications supported by Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix. For Oracle, Snapshot for Oracle was improved to support the disks that are used for Oracle ASM and contain a single partition, multiple partitions, or a combination of single and multiple partitions. Now, in order to use this, all the disk partitions for an instance being snapshotted must be ASM partitions, and that's Oracle Automatic Storage Management. And they also must contain data for the same Oracle instance. Now, just some notes on versions of Oracle supported. Data protection for Oracle does fully support Oracle 12c because it is an RMAN media manager, but we have not changed our support for Oracle 12c with Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix version 8.1. We do support 64-bit Oracle 12c R1, but we do not support multi-tenant container databases or pluggable databases at version 12. This last change for Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix allows Snapshot for custom applications to offload to the Protect servers for databases that are not owned by a single user. And this is controlled by the snapshot profile parameter run offload backup as root. Okay, moving on to Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix and the SVC Dynamic Target Allocation Adapter, or DTC. Now, back in Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix 1.4, we added this dynamic target allocation adapter. It used to be prior to version 4.1.4, you had to go in here and predefine to the SVC and predefine the target volumes for a snapshot operation and put them in this FCT file. Now, that was a lot of labor on the part of the system administrator. So what our developers did at version 4.1.4 was develop this dynamic target allocation adapter, which basically automatically defined the targets for you. And that greatly improved the ease of use of the product when using any of these SVC-based systems. Now, there was a limitation of this dynamic target adapter at 4.1.4, and that was it did not include remote mirroring support. Well, now with Spectrum Protect Snapshot 8.1 UNIX and Spectrum Protect Snapshot 4.1.6.1 for VMware, we are going to start including remote mirroring support in the SVC DTA. So just a quick overview of what remote mirroring can do and how customers use it. Basically what it allows you to do is let you use snapshotting with Metro Mirror or Global Mirror functions to set up a secondary standby site. So it extends Spectrum Protect Snapshot to allow flash copy management on the secondary site, leveraging those remote mirroring capabilities of the SVC. Typically what happens is, or the way customers use this, is they offload workload from a production storage control unit to this secondary site, and then use the secondary site to either consolidate multiple backups from several source sites, or to create snapshots for use in restores and disaster recovery scenarios, or to offload backups to a Spectrum Protect server at the DR site. So some additional details on the use of the SVC DTA with both Metro and Global Mirror. As you can see from the slide, both are supported at version 8.1. But if you're going to use global mirroring, you will need to use cycling mode for both Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix, Linux, and Spectrum Protect Snapshot for VMware. What's going to happen in this case is Spectrum Protect is going to enforce a refresh of the primary site change volume at the time you do the snapshot. So there's no need to wait for the next cycling period. So essentially the order of operations is going to be with global mirroring. Spectrum Protect Snapshot is going to suspend the application on the primary site, be it a custom application, DB2 Oracle. It's going to trigger a refresh of the primary site change volume so that it has a consistent copy. And that change volume is going to be of the primary site is going to be synchronized to the secondary site change volume. At that point, Spectrum Protect is going to resume the application on the primary site, and then once the synchronization is complete, Spectrum Protect will create the flash copy for the backup on the secondary site. Okay, so that is Spectrum Protect Snapshot for Unix. The next set of enhancements I'd like to discuss is for Spectrum Protect for ERP and specifically support for SAP HANA. Now at version 8.1, what we did is enhance the support for SAP HANA multi-tenant databases. And so in the setup script now you can configure ERP HANA for multi-tenant databases with either low or high isolation. You can configure different TSM parameters for each tenant database by creating individual UTL files, and you can of course back up and restore multi-tenant databases with SAP HANA. Now, in order to support this, there have been changes made in the setup script. So the MDC user support has been added, and changes have also been made in the setup script to support max sessions and sessions parameters so that you can do parallel stream restores, and also to configure the redo log copy parameter. So those are the changes that have been made in the setup script at version 8.1. Now, in addition to those changes, we do allow different retention policies and standards to be specified when you're backing up a SAP HANA database. And that can basically be done on the command line or in the HANA cockpit, as you see here. So basically, you'll be able to control the retention using different policies on the Spectrum Protect server. Okay, so as a last quick note, I just wanted to communicate the fact that over the last quarter, the Spectrum portfolio has been enhanced with the addition of IBM Spectrum Copy Data Management. And Spectrum Copy Data Management basically allows you to take snapshots that are built using supported infrastructure such as our flash systems, Storewises, SVCs, and other types of arrays, and catalog those snapshots so that you can use them for various types of operations that you can do with snapshots, such as protection and disaster recovery, mounting them for test development or reporting, and also perhaps moving them to the cloud. We won't go into a lot of details about this, but there are some other YouTube videos out there on Spectrum Copy Data Management, and I would encourage you to take a look at them if you're interested. So just some useful links here in the end of the presentation. I would encourage you to subscribe to both my YouTube channel and Trisha Zhang's YouTube channel, where we do, on an ongoing basis, communicate the updates that are being added to Spectrum Protect. And you can also visit our vlog, where you can take a look at all of our past videos and find some of the things that are interested to you or subjects that you might be interested in. I hope you found this video useful, and I look forward to seeing you in another video in the future.